Okay, moving on to ABRSM Grade 2. Hopefully this doesn't trip us up too much. We probably need to know a few more things, and there'll be a few more advanced ideas in this exam paper, but if we've studied all of the ideas about music theory, this is not going to be a problem at all. Just to say again that I got this paper from musictheoryhelp.co.uk, which is a really good site. You can find lots of information about music exams, and you can get hold of this paper for you to try yourself. And I would actually recommend having a go at completing this exam before you watch me do it, so that you can see whether we agree and you've got the same answers as me. You can also get the answers from the website as well. So lots of ways of going about doing this. But let's have a go and see how we find grade 2. So this paper contains 5 questions, all of which should be answered. Very good. Time allowed 1 hour 15 minutes. So if we divide that time by 5, that gives us about 15 minutes per question, although it's always good to leave yourself a bit of time to check your answers and everything. So maybe aim for 10, 12 minutes per question, and then you've got time at the end to go and see all the stupid stuff you did and change it to the right thing, which you'll be always amazed at the sort of silly mistakes that you made as you go through this kind of thing. But hopefully we won't make any silly mistakes in this video, but by all means tell me if I have made silly mistakes. So question 1 says, study the following extract which begins on the first beat of the bar, and then answer the questions below. So first question says, add an appropriate time signature to the extract above. Fair enough, we can probably manage this. What's nice about this one compared with the grade 1 example is it's not asking us to put in bar lines. We've actually got all the bar lines in the example. So that's really great. So we can just pick a bar that looks kind of easy to sort of analyse, and then work out what's going on in terms of the time, the rhythm, the meter of this extract. So let's choose this bar because this bar looks pretty straightforward. There's only a few notes in here. It's not so much like this one, which is slightly more sort of busy. Let's see what's going on. So the first note in this bar is a quaver, or an 8th note, relatively straightforward. That's half a beat, and these 2 notes added together also give us half a beat because they are 2 semiquavers or 16th notes. And then we've got this, another quaver, 8th note, or half a beat. So we've got something interesting going on here, because if we add up 3 halves, we of course get 1.5 beats, which means that it's probably not going to be that useful to use a time signature that has a 4 on the bottom, because a 4 on the bottom means crotchet beats or quarter note beats, and if we're looking at bars that have 1.5 quarter note beats in, that's not going to be very easy to count. So it's probably likely that we'll be using one of those time signatures with an 8 on the bottom, otherwise known as a compound time signature, where instead of counting in crotchet beats or quarter note beats, we count in dotted crotchet or dotted quarter note beats, and that's exactly what's going on here. So if we think about our three halves of a beat not really adding up to 1.5 crotchets, but they also add up to 3 quavers. And that's probably what we should call our time signature. Let's call it 3/8, which means there's 3 quavers in a bar, and that really means, of course, not 3 quaver beats. If we're being really serious, we're saying this music's actually in 1 dotted crotchet in a bar, but as long as you can come up with the right time signature, you'll get your marks, and that's all good. So let's see what's going on in the next question. It's saying, give the meaning of allegro. Well, we had that in the last exam, so that's very good. That's easy enough. Again, it means quite fast. Not the fastest you could do, but, definitely fast. I'm sure that would be enough to get you the mark for that one. Here's 2F. So again, in grade 1, we had F, which was for forte. This is even louder. So forte was loud. This is louder still. So 2Fs is short for fortissimo in Italian, which means very loud. It doesn't necessarily mean absolutely the loudest you can play on your instrument. There should always be, something that's comfortable to play, but is definitely loud. Because sometimes composers use 3 or 4 Fs, and when you get to 3 or 4 Fs, that really is like the loudest. Even if the sound becomes quite horrible because you're playing so loud, that's okay in that sort of music. But here, which is interesting, because the next question says, here, what does this mean? Cres. And that is short for crescendo, which means get louder. This is another one of these kind of playing instructions that you either know or you don't know, but that means get louder. And of course, if you see FF and you're playing absolutely as loud as you can play, you've got nowhere to crescendo to, because you're already at the absolute limit of what your instrument can do. So that's quite a useful thing to remember, that just because we see FF doesn't mean it's the loudest we can do. It just means it's very loud, and we should still have some space to go louder or quieter if we need to. So this crash here means get louder If you can spell it, that's even better. It's quite tricky to spell, but looks like that. And it means get louder. So that's good. The next question says, complete the following sentences. The lowest note in the extract is a blank, and the highest note is a blank. Fair enough. So we've got to go and look at what is the lowest and the highest note and work out what they are called. So this is definitely looking like a contender for the lowest note. I don't see a lower note. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say the lowest note in the extract is a C sharp, and the highest note is, well, there's a D that's quite high here at the beginning of the piece, and I don't see a note that's higher than that, so I'm going to say the highest note is a D. The minor key signature with one flat is what? So that requires us to know a few things. If we see this key signature, we're probably thinking it's going to be F major or D minor, because those are the keys that have this key signature, and you can work that out from knowing the cycle of fifths. And when you're in one of these music exams, it probably wouldn't hurt to spend 1 minute writing down the circle of fifths, because it comes up so many times in all these different grades that you need a bit of information from the circle of fifths, like what's the key signature, what's the relative minor of a particular major key, and all that kind of stuff. So I'd say what I used to do was just write down the circle of fifths really quickly in the first 30 seconds, and then you can just keep referring back to it as you go along. So this is something you can find from the circle of fifths if you know how to draw it. The minor key signature with one flat is D minor. And then the major key signature with one flat is F major. And we would find that out from the circle of fifths, or we would just know the scale of F major or D minor. That would help us answer those questions. Got quite a lot of stuff in this first question. Name the interval between the first and last note of the extract. So we have to look at the first and last note and work out what is the space in pitch between them. And so here's a D up here. This is quite a high note, I suppose, to start on. And we're looking at the last note. It's also a D down here. So that's a D and that's a D. But they are different Ds, if you like. They are two flavors of the same thing that we call D. And they are an octave apart, aren't they? If there's two notes that have the same name, but they sound different, then they are going to have that octave relationship. So the interval between the first and last notes of the extract is an octave. And I think, oh no, there's more. Oh, there's more. Okay, write true if the pairs of notes in each bracket are a semitone apart, or untrue if not. Again, we have this true, untrue thing going on, which is important to remember. And we have to also look up at the example, and we're going to look at each one in turn and say, are these notes a semitone apart? Okay, cool, we can do that. So here is A, this is our first bracket, and that's connecting an E to a D. So I have to ask ourselves the question, well, is an E and a D a semitone apart? And I think they are not. So it's not false, remember, it's untrue. So let's stick in untrue. B, that's this one down here. Again, is little things like I would expect B to be there for some reason, and C to be there, and D to be there. So it's so easy to just mix them all up and write the wrong thing in the box. So this is B. Let's have a look at B. So this is an A and a B. So it's worth asking the question to yourself again, is the space between an A and a B a tone or a semitone? Well, you might say that it is a tone, the distance between an A and a B, but there is something to remember here, and that is that this piece of music has a key signature at the beginning, which is telling us that every B that we see in this piece of music is a B flat. So in fact, this is not asking us what is the distance between an A and a B. It's asking us what is the difference between an A and a B flat. So in fact, while on the surface it might seem that they are a tone apart, they are actually a semitone apart, which would make the answer to B true. Okay, we're now on to C, and that's the distance between a D and a C sharp. Quite straightforward. They are a semitone apart, so that's true. We write that in for C. And then finally, brackets D. This is an F and an E, and again, there's little things that can catch you out. So you've got to be careful that there wasn't an accidental earlier in the bar, or they get quite sneaky on these kind of things. So you've got to be careful to make sure that you are absolutely sure what the notes are, but in this case it is an F and it is an E, and it turns out that those two notes again are flat bang next to each other on the keyboard, and so indeed they are a semitone apart. So let's just check that I've got this right. I think the first one is true, the first one is untrue, and the other three are true. So let's just make sure that's the case. E to D is a tone, so that's untrue. A to B flat is a semitone, so that's true. D to C sharp is a semitone, so that's true. F to E is also a semitone, so that's true. Good stuff. So that is question 1 in the bag. I'll see you in question 2.